Every morning, while you're still asleep, something extraordinary happens outside your window. The air, the same air you breathe, fills with invisible water. Millions of microscopic droplets suspended in the atmosphere, just waiting to be collected. Ancient civilizations knew this. Desert tribes survived on it for centuries. And today, there are simple, cheap devices that pull clean, drinkable water straight out of the air. No well, no pipes, no filter system, no electricity bill. Some of them cost less than $20 to build. So why have 9 states in America made it illegal to collect atmospheric water on your own property? Why did a California man get fined over $4,000 for installing one of these systems on his roof? And why, when researchers at MIT published a breakthrough method for pulling water from desert air, using nothing but sunlight, did major utility companies immediately begin lobbying against its adoption? That's what this video is about. Not just the technology, the suppression of it. By the end of the next 30 minutes, you're going to know exactly how to build 3 different atmospheric water collection systems for almost nothing. You're going to understand the science behind why they work so well. And you're going to understand exactly why powerful industries have spent decades making sure you never learned this in school. Stay with me, because what I'm about to show you changes everything you thought you knew about water. Let's start with the basics, because once you understand this, the technology makes perfect sense. The air around you right now contains water. Always. Even in the driest desert on Earth, the air holds some measurable moisture. This moisture is called atmospheric water vapor, and it exists because the sun constantly evaporates water from oceans, lakes, rivers, and soil, sending it up into the atmosphere where it floats as invisible gas. At any given moment, the Earth's atmosphere holds roughly 37.5 million billion gallons of water. That number is almost impossible to comprehend. To put it in perspective, that's about 6 times the total amount of fresh water in all of Earth's rivers combined. Just floating up there. Invisible. Waiting. Now here's where it gets interesting. When warm air cools down, whether from dropping temperatures at night or from contact with a cold surface, can no longer hold as much water vapor. The water has to go somewhere, so it condenses. It turns back into liquid droplets. This is called the dew point, and it's the exact mechanism that puts frost on your car windshield every winter morning, fills your cold glass with condensation on a humid summer afternoon, and covers grass with dew at dawn. This process isn't random. It's predictable, repeatable, and consistent. And for centuries, people all over the world have been quietly engineering structures and surfaces to take advantage of it. The ancient Incas built what are now called fog catchers in the coastal mountains of Peru. Massive mesh nets strung between poles on hilltops, designed to intercept the heavy sea fog that rolled in from the Pacific every night. Studies of these ancient sites show that a single large fog net in the right location can collect hundreds of liters of water per day, for free, with no moving parts, with no power source, with no maintenance beyond occasionally checking the collection container. In the Negev Desert in Israel, archaeologists discovered thousands of small stone piles arranged in specific patterns across ancient agricultural fields. For decades, nobody understood what they were for. Then researchers figured it out. The stones were dew collectors. The rocks absorbed heat during the day, then radiated it slowly at night, creating the perfect temperature differential to condense dew directly onto their surfaces, which then ran down into the soil to water crops. Farmers in one of the driest regions on Earth were harvesting water from air using nothing but rocks arranged in the right pattern. 3,000 years ago, in the Atacama Desert in Chile, the driest nonpolar desert on Earth, where some areas receive less than 1 millimeter of rainfall per year, the Atacamino people survived for generations, using a plant called the lerita and specific rock formations to channel fog and dew into their water supply. These aren't primitive techniques. They're sophisticated, proven engineering solutions that work with the laws of physics instead of against them, and modern science has taken them much further. In 2018, researchers at MIT and Berkeley published a paper that sent shockwaves through the water technology world. They had developed a material, a metal organic framework, or MOF, that could passively pull water from air with as little as 10% relative humidity. 10%. That's drier than the Sahara Desert on most days. The device required no electricity, no pump, no filter, just sunlight to release the collected water once it had been absorbed. A kilogram of this material could produce up to 3 liters of water per day, even in near-desert conditions. The lead researcher said publicly that this technology, scaled up, could provide clean drinking water to virtually any human settlement on Earth, regardless of rainfall, regardless of access to rivers or groundwater, using nothing but ambient air and sunlight. The patent was filed. The paper was published. The scientific community celebrated. And then, very quietly, the funding dried up. The commercialization stalled. The technology never reached the market in any affordable form. We'll come back to why in a moment. First, let me show you the 3 systems you can build yourself, right now, with materials from any hardware store that use these exact same principles. System 1. The basic dew collector, $0 to $15. This is the simplest atmospheric water collection system you can build, and in the right climate, it works remarkably well. You need 4 things: a sheet of plastic or metal mesh, a collection trough, a frame to hold the mesh at an angle, and a container at the bottom. The principle is pure physics. At night, when the temperature drops, surfaces that have lost their heat fastest become the coldest points in the environment. Any water vapor in the air that touches these cold surfaces immediately condenses into liquid droplets. Your job is to maximize the surface area of a cold material that's exposed to moving air, and to angle it so that droplets run down into a collection container. Here's exactly how to build it. Take a 4-foot by 8-foot sheet of plastic mesh, the kind used for garden fencing, available at any hardware store for about $6. Mount it on a simple wooden or PVC frame at roughly 45 degrees from vertical, facing the direction of your prevailing night wind. At the bottom edge of the mesh, attach a length of 1/2-inch PVC pipe with small holes drilled along its length, connected to a collection bucket. On a clear night, with even 30% humidity, a sheet this size will collect between 1/2 liter and 2 liters of water by morning. In coastal areas, humid climates, or locations that receive regular fog, that number can jump to 5 or 6 liters per night. Cost, under $15 in materials. Water produced, free, indefinitely. Maintenance, rinse the mesh once a month. Now here's an important upgrade that nearly doubles your collection. Use a material called shade cloth with a mesh density of between 30 and 50% instead of standard plastic mesh. The smaller apertures and slightly textured surface create more nucleation points, more places for water droplets to begin forming. The difference in collection rate is significant. An even better material, if you can source it: stainless steel mesh. Metal conducts heat away faster than plastic, meaning the mesh surface gets colder faster at night, meaning condensation starts earlier and runs longer. A stainless steel mesh collector will typically outperform a plastic one of the same size by 30 to 40%. System 2. The wet jar condenser, $20 to $40. This system is based on something most people have noticed, but never thought to engineer around. A cold container pulled from the refrigerator immediately begins sweating in humid air. The container surface is colder than the dew point of the surrounding air, so moisture condenses instantly on its surface. The wet jar condenser takes this observation and turns it into a passive water collection system. Here's how it works. You bury a large ceramic or unglazed terracotta container in the ground, at least 18 inches deep, ideally 24 to 30 inches. Below that depth, the ground temperature stabilizes at roughly 50 to 55 degrees Fahrenheit year-round in most temperate climates, regardless of what the surface temperature is doing. The buried container equilibrates to that temperature. You then run a pipe from the container up to just above ground level, with a mesh screen over the top, to keep insects out. The air that flows down into that pipe hits the cold ceramic surface of the underground container, and, if the air temperature above ground is above the dew point of the entering air, condenses immediately. A well-designed underground condenser of this type, in a climate with regular humidity above 50%, can passively produce 1 to 3 liters of water per day, with zero electricity, with no moving parts, with no ongoing cost. The Romans used a version of this system. So did communities in rural India, in the Canary Islands, and in parts of West Africa. It is, in every meaningful sense, a solved problem. System 3. The fog net, $50 to $100, scales to any size. For locations that receive regular coastal fog, marine layer, or orographic mist, this is by far the most productive system available. A standard fog net consists of a double-layer polypropylene mesh stretched between two vertical poles, with a collection trough along the bottom edge. The mesh intercepts airborne water droplets carried in fog, droplets that are too small to fall as rain, but large enough to be caught by a fine mesh surface. The numbers on fog net collection are extraordinary. Studies conducted in the coastal mountains of Chile, Peru, Morocco, Eritrea, and California have consistently shown collection rates of between 3 and 10 liters of water per square meter of net per day in foggy conditions. A net measuring 10 feet by 15 feet has a surface area of roughly 14 square meters. That's potentially over 100 liters of water per day. From a net that costs under $100 to build. The Dar Mad project in Morocco operates the world's largest operational fog collection system. Nearly 1,000 square meters of fog nets in the Anti-Atlas Mountains, providing water to 5 villages that had no other reliable water source. It cost less than any equivalent well drilling project. It requires almost no maintenance, and it has been running continuously for over a decade. This is not experimental technology. This is not fringe science. This works. It has been proven in dozens of countries, on multiple continents, in some of the driest and most inhospitable places on Earth. So why, in the wealthiest nation on Earth, is it illegal in 9 states to collect the water that falls from the sky, or condenses out of the air around you? This is the part of the video that most people find hard to believe until they look it up themselves. So I'm going to give you exact laws, exact states, and exact language, and you can verify every word of it. In Colorado, until 2016, it was completely illegal to collect rainwater on your own property. Not regulated, not restricted, illegal. The law dated back to 1876 and was grounded in the doctrine of prior appropriation, the legal principle that water rights in western states belong not to the landowner whose property it falls on, but to whoever claimed the right to that water first, often decades or centuries ago. What this means in practice is that a raindrop falling on your roof in Colorado was legally the property of a downstream water rights holder, a farmer, a city, a corporation, before it even hit the ground. Colorado has since partially relaxed this law, allowing homeowners to collect up to 110 gallons. But the underlying doctrine, that atmospheric water belongs to someone other than the person collecting it, remains fully in force across multiple western states. In Utah, collecting rainwater without a water right is still restricted. In Nevada, in Arizona, in parts of Washington state, in New Mexico, in Wyoming, in California, the regulations vary by county and water district, with some areas requiring permits for any atmospheric collection system above a certain size. And here is the thing almost nobody talks about: atmospheric water collection. Pulling moisture directly from air using the fog net and condenser systems I just described exists in a complete legal gray zone in most of these states. The laws were written around rain. They say rainwater. They say precipitation. They don't say dew, or fog, or atmospheric condensate. Which means that in most of these states, there is currently no explicit law against building a fog net or a dew collector. The suppression isn't primarily through direct prohibition. It's through something more subtle and more effective. It's through ignorance. Nobody teaches this in school. It's not in any standard home improvement guide. The major media outlets never cover it. And when individual inventors or small companies have tried to commercialize affordable atmospheric water devices, they've consistently run into the same wall. No regulatory pathway for their product category, no utility company willing to integrate with them, and no large retailer willing to carry products that compete with municipal water infrastructure. In 2019, a startup called Zero Mass Water, later renamed Source, developed solar-powered panels that pulled drinking water from air. The technology worked extraordinarily well. Reviews were glowing. The science was solid. They were priced at $2,000 per panel. $2,000 for a system that, at that price point, would take years to break even compared to tap water costs. The technology was real. The affordability was engineered out of it. Meanwhile, the DIY versions, which cost under $100 and use the same fundamental physics, are never mentioned, never promoted, never taught. Why? Because municipal water infrastructure in the United States represents over $1 trillion in assets. Water utilities are among the most consistently profitable businesses in the country. Every liter of water you collect from the air yourself is a liter you don't buy from them. The suppression isn't always a conspiracy. Sometimes it's just the invisible logic of profit protecting itself. Here is what I want you to take away from this video. The technology to pull clean water from air has existed for thousands of years. It has been refined, proven, and documented on every continent. The basic systems cost almost nothing to build. They require no electricity, no filters, no ongoing cost of any kind. In the right climate, a single well-placed fog net or dew collector can produce enough water for drinking and cooking for a small household, indefinitely for free. This knowledge was systematically removed from mainstream awareness, not by any single law or any single villain, but by the combined weight of a system that profits from your dependency on centralized infrastructure. The 9 states that restrict atmospheric water collection didn't write those laws to hurt you. They wrote them to protect water rights holders, which is to say, corporations and agricultural interests with the money and influence to lobby for those protections. But here's the thing about physics. It doesn't care about lobby groups. Water will always condense on a cold surface when the air temperature drops below the dew point. Fog will always be intercepted by mesh. Dew will always form on grass before sunrise. This knowledge is yours. It always was. Build the collector. Learn the system. Share the video. And the next time someone tells you there's nothing you can do about your water bill, you'll know they're wrong.